folks. Michael J here. How you doing? So I want to share a bit of a misconception that's going on within the conservative media, especially the podcaster portion of media, YouTube, etc., etc. So I'm bringing on there Steve Boots, Mr. Steve Boots. What do you got to say for yourself, sir? Oh, he's not saying too much.
The attacks on Mark Carney continue, and frankly, they are embarrassingly thin. And I want to be very clear here. There are lots of valid criticisms of Mark Carney. His policies are neoliberal policies par excellence. They are going to enrich markets and empower capital, but that's not what the criticisms are about. They're about his haircut and his college thesis and a million other things that don't really have anything to do with anything, and don't really hold up to scrutiny. And I think it's hard not to be a little cynical and recognize that the media does directly benefit from a close election. There's a vested interest in wanting both sides to give the appearance that both parties are in equal amounts of turmoil and both campaigns face equal obstacles and have equally good ideas. When in reality, that starts to shape the way that the stories are told. And it really does the public and the candidates a disservice. For example, this story run by the Globe and Mail about Mark Carney. It suggests that the Liberal Party have close ties with the Jiangsu Commerce Council of Canada, the JCCC. And this is essentially just a commerce committee that's meant to facilitate trade with China in a bunch of different ways. And so there are two parts of the connection that are being drawn here. One is that Peter Yuen, the Liberal candidate for Markham Unionville, is listed by them as an honorary director, although it appears that the relationship ended over a decade ago. And although he did decline to answer questions about Taiwanese self-determination or condemn China's actions against the Uyghurs, he does not appear to have any direct ties to the organization. And the Globe and Mail is really trying to draw the connection using these.
Here's the other thing. Yun was a former deputy chief, Metropolitan Toronto Police Force, number one. Number two, people don't understand the Chinese community and how it works. Unless you've been within the community and understand, you won't understand it. And I've known it well, like going back over 30 years ago, over 35 years ago, 40 years ago now.
These photos that show Mark Carney shaking hands with folks from the JCCC. So there's a couple of things here. First up, the goal of the JCCC is to promote trade, business cooperation, and friendly relations between Ontario and the Chinese province of Jiangsu, and between Canada and China. So what specifically is the issue here? Genuinely, if you think that organization is a problem, why? It's a diaspora community working to facilitate trade between Canada and China. There's no crime here. But beyond that, there's really no evidence that there's any connection between the Liberals and this organization other than they showed up at an event and took some photos with Mark Carney. And if we suddenly believe that a handshake and a photo is an endorsement, Pierre Poilievre's going to have a lot of explaining to do, because politicians take photos with tons and tons of people, and they don't vet everybody they take a photo with. It's just honestly not super realistic with how rallies and photo ops are done these days. These are just really thin lines of criticism, and it really seems like the Globe and Mail are reaching here. And they're not the only ones. The National Post opinion section is wild. Let's just look at some of the most recent opinion section headlines about the election as of scripting on Friday afternoon. Now, I've excluded stuff that isn't specifically about the federal election, but beyond that, these are in the order they were in on Friday afternoon when I was scripting this. First up, should conservatives believe they're doomed polls? Spoiler alert, no. Poilievre has been vindicated for refusing security clearance. Jordan Peterson says, are older Liberal voting Canadians selfish or just blind? The opinion on that one, very subtle. For a further clarification of Jordan Peterson's opinions, you could just go to his YouTube page.
Hold on a sec. Before we get any further on this, I got to say, Mr. Smith, this is Mr. Smith from The Matrix, he does a pretty decent imitation of Jordan Peterson. Let me know in the comments section what you think. Here he's going to do it soon.
Where he wrote, quote, to all you young men watching, make sure you vote. Talk to two friends, tell them the same. It's your future. Good. Don't let idiotically empathic leftist women and old people wishing blindly for the past steal it again from you. Charming. No wonder he dresses like a discount Batman villain. We've got Meet Danielle Smith, patriot. This one about Mark Carney that I'm not going to read out loud so it doesn't get flagged. Liberal promises just keep happening to intersect with Mark Carney's business interests. Mark Carney still can't explain how he's different from Trudeau. Carney's rosy energy promises meet the Liberals' dismal record. Seriously, that was just in order. This is what they're running all the time. It is just relentless attacks on Mark Carney and relentless Poilievre boosting from an organization that just happens to be majority owned by an American hedge fund. What a coincidence. Like, this is ridiculous. If the CBC did this towards Pierre Poilievre and ran opinion piece after opinion piece with such obvious leanings, Poilievre's support...
See, Chatham Asset Management is an American hedge fund. They own most of the dailies across Canada. They've been brainwashing the general population for well over a decade. As a matter of fact, now that I mention that, Pierre Poilievre says the lost decade, the Liberals' lost decade, which is friggin' horse crap, if you really look into it. But it really coincides with this Chatham Asset Management. It's actually 15 years if you want to look at it from that perspective. Their purchase of Post Media Productions, National Post, Toronto Sun, etc., 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 etc. Not quite into oblivion, but we're getting there. But this right-wing slant's been heavy. It infiltrated the truckers' convoy in Ottawa, the truckers' convoy in Coutts, Alberta. So you people have been brainwashed. There is some validity to some of the things that have been said. Let's be honest. Let's be fair. But you've been manipulated, and you just don't get it.
Supporters would be losing their minds. But because it comes from the National Post, we all just seem to collectively shrug. What is going on with the Canadian media during this election cycle? It seems more and more like they're just serving as stenography for the parties, and in some cases just outright supporting them. And if you think that the media bias supports the Liberals, there is no evidence to back that up. As always, I draw your attention to this chart. This was put together by David Mastracci from the Maple and...
Oh, and here's the other thing. Defund, everybody says defund CBC. And these guys like Moose and the Loose, Juno News, Elevate Podcast, there's a few more out there now. There always were out there, just didn't notice them all. But they'll take a CBC piece and say it's fact, and this proves that Carney's no good when they want that, but then on the flip side, they'll say defund the CBC. CBC's biased. So the hypocrisy runs deep on the conservative clan side. Just saying.
Breaks down the endorsements that 17 major newspapers have made for the 13 most recent federal elections. And what you see is that 56% of the endorsements over that time were for the Conservatives, compared to 20% for the Liberals and 14.5% for none of the above. However, one thing you'll notice is when you break it down by ownership, the more the Canadian media gets consolidated, the more they come to support the Conservatives. When you see this sort of chart, it's pretty hard not to recognize that now many of these are owned by Post Media and consistently endorse the Conservatives. Probably a coincidence. And now the National Post is running opinion piece after opinion piece going...
Probably a coincidence. Mr. Smith, there are no coincidences. This has been by design. Just like internationaldemocracyunion.org. They've got democracy there. But guess what? There's not much democracy because, Orban was in that circle. They'll suppress your right to speak. They say they're there for free speech, but they're very tricky how they operate. Did I say that? Dang, I did.
One after the Liberals and boosting the Conservatives. Which brings me to the single funniest line of attacks on Mark Carney. Liz Truss, former UK Prime Minister who couldn't...
This is a beautiful one. Before, I think I know where he's going with this. Now, she's been out there being interviewed through Post Media. Not sure if it was the Sun. Yeah, I think the Sun might have done it. But nonetheless, she says Carney is no good. She claims he gave her a bag of bad goods which torpedoed her career. Meanwhile, He left as bank governor in the UK before she became prime minister, and she cannot on her own say, listen, my 49-day tenure, 49 days, you saying just over a month and a half? Yes. She was British prime minister for 49 days, and she blames Mark Carney for it. Meanwhile, Mark Carney exited the scene in the UK 2 years prior. Just go figure. But the Conservatives are using her to smear Mark Carney.
And outlast a head of lettuce has reemerged to let us all know that everything that went wrong in the UK was Mark Carney's fault and definitely not hers.
Here we go.
Nope. Somebody completely different who held their job for longer than 49 days. Liz Truss's tenure as prime minister was a disaster, and now she's going to suggest that it somehow wasn't her fault. It was Mark Carney's fault. Worth noting, Liz Truss, prime minister September to October 2022. Mark Carney, governor of Bank of England from 2013 to 2020. So somehow things that happened 2 years after he left are his fault. Why? Because Liz Truss said so. When in reality, we all know who's really in charge at 10 Downing Street. Larry the Cat. It's all just adding to the weirdest election imaginable, where the Liberals have broken into a very clear lead.
You gotta love Larry the Cat. Larry the Cat? Yeah, Larry the Cat. Nothing but the cats. Steve Boots? Boots is the cat's name. That's his alter ego. The Orange Cat. So that's where we're at, folks. You should know by now, anxiety getting the best of you. You've been exposed to too much conservative media bias. It's creating fear and anxiety, ruining your sleep. Just let it go. Sleep on it. Do what my buddies do. Sending love and peace to everybody. Questions, comments, throw in chat. Take care, folks.